We're from King. So first of all, we're sorry for everything that we've done, but we're working on that. We recently launched a game engine, which has been a really interesting ride, and we have been deeply involved in that, both me and Mikael. And this is, of course, totally new for King. We've never done that before, launching technology as a product or trying to build a developer community. So a learning experience for sure. So the background briefly is that Defold was created by a couple of guys coming from the AAA industry, and they wanted to solve all the technical hurdles and let game teams focus on creating games. And then King acquired that company. It was basically those two guys and that technology. And we've been using it internally for about 2 years. There's 1 game live, there's 7 games in production, and we have other technologies internally as well. But this is, since it was originally intended to be a product for everyone, it was fairly easy from a technical perspective to bring it to the world. So that's what we've done. So we'll talk a little bit about the engine. We'll talk a little bit about this thing that we've done, that we launched something, and how that's going. We also have a booth just to the left outside here. So if there are questions or if you want to dig deeper, please catch us there. So this is a few short examples of things done in the engine. So the very first part here will be from Blossom Blast Saga, which is the King game, and the rest are small things created by external teams. These early days, but gives you an idea what you can do. Yeah. So as you might have noticed, that was all 2D. So it's a very 2D focused engine. It's actually 3D at its core, but the toolset is 2D centered. And we'll go deeper into the actual tool in a little bit. So this is actually an internal slide that we've shown at some point within King. So there is actually a reason for being for Defold. Everyone is like, but there's already X amount of stuff out there, and why do we need another engine, and blah, blah, blah. And of course, we're not stupid. We see that too. So there is a reason. So we can see that more King games get shipped. So it turns out that Defold is great for small teams, and it's kind of back to the roots for us. Small teams to quickly make something that actually is shippable. So Blossom Blast Saga, that was made by, it started out with 2 people, one dev and 1 artist, prototyping, and then we ramped that up to 5 people, so still a very small team. And it was actually their first mobile title as well, so it's quite impressive. And they did the entire game in half the time that our projects normally take, so a very successful case. We also want to show that King is more than just candy. We try, it's a win and a curse, or something like that. Increased tech org output, and the public aspect is often, that's something that everyone asks us. Why are you doing this? Why are you giving this away? And I said that we launched it, but it's actually completely free, and there's no licensing or anything. It's just free. So people wonder, what's the catch? Which is the natural reaction. And the answer is that there are, of course, benefits for King. They're just not monetary. So goodwill, recruitment, showing that we're tech savvy, but also improving the product, having lots of external users poking it and helping us creating great tutorials and building upon that. That's beneficial for us as well. So we are a little bit selfish, but it shouldn't hurt that much. So we launched this March at GDC, and that was. How many here have been at GDC, San Francisco? So just a few. So it's exactly like here, but much more, almost something like that. But it was quite a ride. It was a lot of fun, and we've taken this very lean back approach. So we're King, and we're trying to reach indie developers and students. And for us, it's important to be clear about the fact that we're not selling anything. Defold is great for some people, for some use cases. If that's not you, if that's not your use case, then you shouldn't use it. Stay away from it. That's fine. Some people will hate it. That's okay. You don't have to use it. Some people will love it. Great, go for it. And that's been our approach. And I think that's resonated quite well with people. So some people seemed interested, so we got some press. That's always nice, I guess. We made Hacker News Top 10. That was pretty cool. That's Thomas, our CTO, top left, looking something. So the reception then, so some people love it, some don't. There are no native extensions currently. That's something we're launching around late this year or early next year, but that was a gripe. Some challenging concepts. We'll talk a little bit about that. Great that you can ship on mobile and HTML5. And things like this, this quote here at the end, this tweet, I think that's really fun. I mean, King games may be polarizing at times, but this is really cool of them. And then it's like, yay. So as of middle of August, we had 23,000 registered users, which is pretty cool. So there is interest. And these are, again, slides that, it's basically internal slides, but we figure that it's more fun to just talk about everything. So don't be afraid to ask. So when we launched, it looks like this. So we had a few things that happened pre-GDC. So we had some users. So this is the active use. So this is, the 23,000. That's the shiny number that everyone talks about, which doesn't really mean anything. So how many are actually using the engine is, of course, what really matters. So we see during GDC, we had a big spike, of course, of people coming in and testing the engine. And then it flattened out at sort of a new high. So now we have about 1,000 people every week that are actually building stuff, which is great. So that's good. So it's we have a very, again, organic growth here. It's not, we're not throwing marketing money here on this. I mean, it would be kind of fun to do that, but since we're not charging anyone, we kind of, it becomes a tricky business case. So the added cost of going public right now for us is quite low because we need Defold internally at King. So we're developing the engine internally regardless. So that helps everyone. So we had a few wins, I think, from a launch perspective. So there is a really active, super engaged community. So we have a forum with lots of people who are actually becoming quite skilled, and you hang out there a lot. So that's really fun to see. And people are doing dev diaries and etc. Being very engaged, arranging. We had a big games jam that was arranged by a Russian community. With they actually turned out 50 small games, so it was quite a big attendance. So that was really fun. This, of course, is great for us for many reasons and for our users. So third-party devs are adding support to existing tools for us. So that's fantastic. And the Blossom Blast Saga, our game there, we used tiled, so we were a bit extra happy when they added support for us. There's some really great learning assets being created. I mean, we're pretty proud of our documentation, but Games from Scratch, they've done a great video tutorial. There's a guy writing a book of Defold, which is kind of insane, but amazing. And he's putting a lot of effort into that. And there are a growing number, I would say, of indie games that are in production. So we have a number of teams that are making stuff, which is what it's all about for us. It's about helping people make better games. It's also free, as I mentioned, which means that from an educational perspective, all schools and all students are always cautious about spending money. So from that perspective, it's really appreciated from universities and schools. So we had a course with Future Games just recently, and there are other games schools and universities that are interested. So that's a lot of fun. And from an education perspective, you have really rapid feedback as you're working. So it's great to sort of learn and understand concepts around how to also make games. Okay, so the pitch. I'm going to let you go nuts here. You haven't interrupted me once.
No, I turned off my mic, so I couldn't.
Ah, okay. It's like biting your tongue.
All right. So, as Benjamin said, there are lots of questions you can ask, like why do we do this? Because there are tons of engines out there, and there's also like why do they have more than one bank downtown? That's also a valid question to ask, and we see that Defold is very different from other engines. It might look on the surface like just something in between Unity or Game Maker or something like that, but it is at the core very, very different, and it's built with a philosophy that is really clear, with the aim to allow the user to be really quick and agile and have control and be able to quickly build high-performing cross-platform games in a collaborative environment together with
this is
other team
the
members.
awesome marketing slogan thingy. Yeah. But it doesn't really mean that much, so you'll dissect it a bit.
Yeah, I have some more slides here that talks a little bit about what that means. Quickly, first of all, if you have a new team member, if you work with in-house tech, it could be a hassle to set things up. With Defold, we strive to, this is a product, so you download an application, you install it or drag it into the applications folder, and that's it. And then you start it and off you go. So there's no configuration whatsoever. We have extremely fast pipeline. Often a full iteration takes a second or so, maybe 2 seconds, from a change in your project until you can see the result on screen. We do put some well, if you work in many other engines, you get a lot for free. You get like ready-made building blocks, like a character class, for example, that you get for free, and you can just drop that character into a world and get a lot of stuff. We don't do that. We try to solve the absolute common cases. So we have very simple building blocks, and that takes some time to get used to, and it also means that you need to do some more heavy lifting yourself as a developer. But we think that's a good thing. High performance, everything is optimized and cache friendly. We have really fast load times. There's almost no overhead at all from the engine side. Very small footprint if you build a Hello World application for iOS, for example. I think it's 2.8 megabytes or something, and we are striving to get that below 1 megabyte. So we try to get a small footprint as possible, because especially if you publish on mobile, it's you don't want to give away the megabytes to the engine developers. You want to use that for your own content when you produce stuff. So small footprint is really important, and we want you as a developer to be able to ship at any time, so it's just a click away to build a bundle for Android or iOS or whatever you want to ship on, HTML5. It's cross-platform. We strive for zero porting, so you have one code base that you can actually build and target HTML5, OS 10, Windows, Linux, whatever. You do that with one click. And it's also platform agnostic when it comes to the dev environment. So if Benjamin here is working on a Linux machine and I'm on a Mac, that's not a problem. We can work in the same project without problems. And when we work together, that is wonderful thing because everyone is working in the same product. If you have a team with a couple of artists and a couple of developers, everyone sits in the same environment and can share knowledge, and the coders can help. A coder can help an animator, for example, to set up some animation patterns and then show that person, like, this is how you tweak these values, and this is the code, and this is what these things mean, and then the person can experiment themselves. So it's a great way to spread the information throughout the team, that everyone is in the same environment all the time. We use Git under the hood for version control. It's solid, industry standard. And everything in the engine is text-based and extremely merge-friendly. So it's line-based text files, so you can merge almost anything, which is fantastic when you work with other people, of course. Right, let's fire up a quick demo here. Let's see. So I'm gonna. This is how the engine looks. We're not gonna do a very elaborate demo here. It's more about like showcasing a couple of highlights and give you a very quick glance into what the editor looks like and some of the things we think are good with it. And then you can come back by our booth afterwards, and we can drill deeper.
Can everyone hear, Michael? Do you need?
Okay.
Yeah.
What would happen if someone said no? Should I start over again?
Yeah, I think so. Or if we could just raise the volume a bit. It's a bit
okay.
quiet.
All right.
Can we get that?
Okay, so I have a small demo project here. If I start, there you go. This is the application. It starts with a simple GUI screen. I have opened up the actual GUI editor here, and everything is visual. It's nothing special. I can move stuff around, and I can save that. And sorry, why doesn't it work? What the hell happened here?
Are you in the wrong? It's the demo.
Yeah.
Evil demo god. Yeah.
I don't know why this is not. It says something about the network. I wonder if it doesn't. No, unable to add. Let's do it like this. I'm gonna plug in my phone so we get network real quick. I think that's the. Yeah, now it reloads. Right. So what I can do here is I can edit this thing, and I just reload the file, and you see that it instantly changes in the running game. So I have hot reloading is what we call this. This is, you can hot reload pretty much anything in the engine, and that is fantastic for some things. It's not always that useful, because you see that if I close down the game, do a small change, and then rebuilds, it rebuilds in a fraction of a second. So often it's just as easy to just restart and have a look at what you're doing. But there are cases where this is extremely useful, especially if you work with a lot of content that you need to see everything together. So, for example, in this little demo, I have a small spaceship here, and there are some waves that come in, and it's nothing fancy. But if you it doesn't look that interesting though. And what I can do here in a running game is I can start changing things. For example, I feel that okay, this is the ship. It's a little bit sluggish, perhaps. So let's try to change that. We have the player script here. This is the Lua script that controls the player, and let's just make that a bit faster. There you go. So that's very easy. I also have a function here on reload in every script that I can use to, for example, if I want to look at the variable or whatever, I can just print that and see that in the console here. But I can do more fancy stuff than that. For example, the whole render pipeline in Defold is scriptable. So this is the script that controls the whole render. And we can see here that it draws a couple of what we call render predicates. And I have set up a couple of them. And let's see what happens if I just do that. Now it's not rendering anything. So I can easily change things in real time. And now I added this grid in the background. So I can experiment and do things live and just toy with it.
Yeah.
Maybe
this works
change
also on device. It works on device over Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so I can run it on my iPhone and see exactly the same thing. I also can do the same thing with the actual. Let's take the fragment shader that does this star field, and let's crank that up a bit. Oh, there we go. Now it's more interesting. And finally, let's look at what we can do with this wave that came in with enemies. They are controlled by this script, and we see that there are a number of curves here that govern how they move. And I have prepared, when I do on reload, I can show this. So if I do reload there, you see that they start to appear. And I can change where I want to see them. I'm going to move, otherwise the ship would explode. So I can just step this forward, and we see that they actually crash into each other. And let's try to fix that by the two waves collide. So let's fix that by changing the curve here. Let's put that at a little bit higher, perhaps. I don't know if that is enough. Let's go ahead a little bit further. Oh, sorry. Doesn't really do it. But if I make that wave a little bit tighter instead. Oh, that looks better. So that's the first thing I can do. Then so I can make that look a little bit better. But then I know that, okay, the ship has to be able to interact with these enemies. Let's first go back and change the speed of the player, because I feel it was a little bit too much there. So there we go. So when I play this, I'm probably going to sit down here, and then I see this wave come in and towards me, and then there's a wave coming from the side, and I will probably move to this side of the screen and sit here and try to avoid these guys. And so what we can do here to make it a little bit easier for us is to add another thing to the on reload. Let's turn on some input. We start acquiring input, focus. And input is going to be sent to a function, and I have one down here. A simple one that does. You don't have to set this each frame. And now I can control these very precisely. And I see that, okay, oops, I crashed, but there is enough room there, almost enough room. Maybe I should just make that top wave a little bit tighter, and then it's going to be pretty simple to play this. Let's make that 75. No, that's the first one. Oh, sorry. Doesn't. I'm going to have them go a little bit higher. Let's take them to 1,000. There you go. So there's a little bit more room here for them to go past, and for the player to go past. So this is to highlight the extreme versatility of working in this engine, and we really feel that this is a great tool for experimenting, and especially if you want to prototype something and get results quickly, it's fantastic. because as you see, all the data that I have in my project is moldable, and I can just change it and see the results instantly. It takes a little setup to get this going, and you have to work. You have to adapt your work style a little bit and your way of thinking about how to program a little bit, especially if you come from a platform like Unity and are used to doing object-oriented programming, like traditional object orientation with inheritance and all that. Then it's going to feel strange at first. So there is a learning curve here. Right, back to our slide, I think. You want to talk a bit?
Sure. So this was a very brief glance, and feel free to come by the booth and ask more questions. But this versatility and the workflow, that's derived from the need to try a lot of different things very, very quickly. Because if you don't try things, you're not going to make a fun game. Making a fun game is about experimenting. Nobody knows what will be enjoyable. You have to do something, play it yourself, and then is this better? Is this worse? And having that flexibility in the tool is really important for us and hopefully for others. So Defold is, we say it's modern software, so very stable. Crashes are very rare, fixed ASAP, and we have very demanding internal teams, so try not to disappoint them. We have bi-weekly releases that you just get. It's 100% backwards compatible, and that's this crazy thing to say, but our promise is that we will never break anything. And when we do it, we fix it very quickly. But again, this is a promise we make to our teams. And to the last point here, there's just one version of Defold. It's not like a king version, which is better, and then the one that we give to indies. It's just one version. So that's available for everyone. So it's pretty cool. And just very briefly on the road ahead. So we are releasing user extensions. That's been the big gripe from everyone, and stuff like, ads, Steam, being able to do high-performant runtime stuff like complex AI, things like that. That's coming. I don't have a date, but we have it. We have it. We've built it. It's not just packaged. So it's not. So it's not a theory that it's coming. We're also the editor that you see here. It's built on Eclipse, and
it's also
Let's not go there. But we've rebuilt the editor from scratch. That's currently being tested by external users. So it's basically feature complete. It's also coming pretty soon. It's rebuilt from scratch in Clojure. It's dark. Looks fancy. Stuff like that. Dynamic streaming, something that we're building now. So that's also coming pretty soon, probably this year, which is basically being able to. It had so many names by now. Dynamic streaming and.
It pretty much allows the developer to dynamically change and add new content to a game.
So there are the two main use cases are basically. Our products our games are made like services. So you want to provide the players with new levels, and you don't want them to have to update the application. So it solves that use case. And the other one is mostly for web, I would say, but to decrease the initial bundle. So right now our overhead, as we talked about, is really small. But if you have a lot of game content, you still need to have that initial loading time, which is frustrating for everyone. So getting that. So the goal there is that it should never go above 8 megabytes for the initial download, and that's sort of what we're talking about internally. So that's the plan going out externally, and that you can do that now, but your game will be very small. So improved 3D support is also something that we want to do. Time is always damn it.
The big question, should I switch to Defold? And the answer we will give you is maybe. That it doesn't. It's really hard to say because it's so much up to what you want to do and what you are doing and how you work. It's great for some use cases. It's really bad for others. If you want to do a 3D game, for example, you can do it, but it's going to be a horrible experience to do it in Defold. You have to realize that it's fundamentally different, so be prepared to a lot of weird feelings, like, oh, this doesn't feel like it looks sort of familiar, but it feels like there's something wrong here, and it takes a little bit of time to grasp the thoughts and the ideas about like how things are, why things are like they are in Defold, because they are
as they are for a very good reason.
Yeah.
That is always the case, but it's still something that you have to sort of get your head around.
And also remember that we provide very basic building blocks. We have all the things that you need to make a full game. We have editors for particle effects and for tiles and whatever. But you need to do a lot of heavy lifting yourself, and like with great power comes great responsibility. We provide those basic, powerful, simple blocks and put the responsibility in hopefully your hands. But we'll see. But you're very welcome to check out the product. Just visit www.defold.com and look at. Sign up, download the application, try it out, try some tutorials, visit the forum, talk with other developers.
Yeah, and we'd have any and all feedback is welcome, positive as well as negative.
Yeah, maybe it's for you, maybe it's not.
Okay,
right. Thank you.
Thank you.